everyone. So I'm out here with the rabbits and I don't have a lot of opportunities to film outside in the garden because it's full of snow and it's cold, but I like to film outside. So I figured I would just take this opportunity to talk to you guys while I'm with the rabbits. Hey, Duncan. So what I wanted to talk about was what crops to plant. Okay, when you are first starting out your garden, you want to plant things that you know that your family eats, okay? And you want to plant things that you know that you're going to harvest, because if you are not motivated to harvest the food, to eat the food, then what is the point in growing it, right? So you want to be motivated to harvest the food that you're growing. That's why it's a good idea to grow the things that you like. Grow the things that you know how to cook, and that way you'll be a lot more motivated when it comes time to harvest. Another thing to keep in mind is, if you're a new gardener, I've said this before, you don't want to overwhelm yourself. So, stick to a few varieties, you know, stick to like, I don't know, somewhere around 10 plants, maybe 10, 15 plants would be good. And master those plants, master those crops before you want to expand on growing more things, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself and create more work for yourself, and you don't want to get discouraged. So, stick to a few plants. Don't overwhelm yourself with too much work. Another tip, when you're deciding what to grow, grow things that are expensive at the grocery store. Peppers and basil. Those are just a couple that I can think of off the top of my head. Those things can be expensive in the grocery store. So grow things that you know are pricey at the grocery store. That way you're growing those things at home and you are creating a pathway to becoming more self-sustainable and to rely less and save on your grocery bill. You know, you want to save money and eat better. So, hey, that's two birds with one stone. Another thing you want to keep in mind, you want to grow things that are going to be hardy to your zone. I know that I can't grow a banana tree, okay? I cannot grow full-size watermelons. Not in the space that I have and not in the time that I have. I don't have the setup for that. So I have to grow small watermelons that I know will have time to mature. So make sure that you're checking the time that it takes to maturity on these plants. If you know that this seed is going to take 100 days to mature, then you got to plan for that. And if you don't have a long enough growing season, then you can't grow that. So you have to keep that in mind. Your growing season is the time from your last frost date to the time of your first frost date. So from spring to fall, that space in between, that many days it is from first or from last to first, that's your growing season. That's how many days you have to grow. So when you find out your first and last frost dates, then you can find out how many days you have to grow. Okay, so keep that in mind. Another thing you want to consider when you're growing, when you're picking out what you're going to grow, consider that your growing conditions. Okay, consider how much sunlight you have, how much space you have to offer these plants. Are you going to grow them vertically? Are you going to let them sprawl out on the ground? Are you going to trellis them? Are you going to, cage them? How much space is this plant going to take up? How much space do you have to offer? Is your garden on a slope? Is your garden in shade? If you don't get enough sunlight, if you don't get more than 6 hours of sunlight, you're not going to be able to grow full-size tomatoes. Those things take a lot of hours of sun in order to reach maturity. So if you get 6 hours or less of sunlight, then you're probably better off growing like cherry tomatoes or smaller size fruits that are going to take less time to mature. Those full-size peppers and full-size tomatoes, they need a lot of sun. So you have to consider your growing conditions. The last tip that I have in choosing what crops to grow, choose at least one perennial crop, whether that be a vegetable or a fruit. If you can add at least one perennial crop each year, then you're one step closer to a do-nothing garden, where those plants will come back every year with little to no effort at all and just keep producing for you better and better every year. So some really great starter plants to consider are cherry tomatoes and jalapeno peppers. Even if you get the habanada, no, the not the jalapeno, but the nada-peno, that's what it's called, and it's a heatless jalapeno. If you're not into spicy, then do a sweet, but do a small sweet. Okay, if you don't have a lot of growing light or a lot of sunlight, or if you don't have a lot of full sun time, things that will quickly mature are like cherry tomatoes, jalapeno peppers, because they're smaller. They don't require as much sun. Garlic is a great starter thing to grow. Strawberries are perennials. If you grow strawberries, they will multiply for you every year, and you'll have more and more every year. Kale is a great starter plant, and it thrives in heat, and it also thrives in the cold. So that is a great plant to start out with. So that's like the top 5 that I can think of off the top of my head. There are a lot of plants that you can probably start out with, but like I said, just keep it to a minimum. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. You want to continue to have a passion for growing and for gardening. Just something to think about, something to consider if you're a beginner gardener and you're trying to start out and figure out, what am I going to grow? What do I know how to grow? What is going to grow well for me? Just some things to consider, that's all. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got something out of it, and just some things just to think about when you're starting out a new garden. So until next time, the more you know, the more you grow. Bye guys. Go on.